Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. This is Yvonne from Ginger Chicory. And if you're checking out our channel for the first time, this is something I do with my husband, Chris. We take thrift store finds, we make them over, and we get them ready to resell. And on our channel, we share the vision with you all of what we do to these items, how we clean these items up, how we paint these items up, fix them, and then we get them ready to resell here locally. We have a couple retail booths and a local antique mall. I'm so glad to have you checking out what we're doing today. So in today's video, we are doing some window transfers. Yes, I had gone to Birds Gotta Fly Vintage. I got to personally see, touch and feel some IOD transfers, and so I'm like, okay, what do I have? And they had inspirations of how they did transfers on windows, and I have a little bit of a stash of windows. Yeah, so I'm going to show you how I fix up the windows, clean up the windows, because you just don't slap something on. That's not the Ginger Chick way. So I'm going to share with you my vision for these windows, trying to keep it cost efficient because I love the IOD's transfers. I have to see how well they're going to sell in our area. So yeah, there's that. So check out what I did with some transfers and some old windows. And if you watch my channel, you know that I have a little bit of an old window obsession. Did I ever tell you my love of old windows? I just absolutely love any shape, any size, broken, not broken, glass in, glass out. Just absolutely love them. I'm not intimidated by how dirty they are or the patina. I like the patina, but I do like to have it a little bit cleaner than this. But I do absolutely love old windows. I'm going to start right off with removing any hardware. Whether I use the hardware at the end, I'm unsure about with using transfers or not. I don't know if that is an accessory that will look good with a transfer, but I'm going to go ahead and remove any of that might be on these. Now this one, it is way too chippy. That means if somebody buys it, it's just going to chip all over our booth. It's going to chip all over their house. And usually I would just go ahead and start sanding it, but I can tell as soon as I touch it, those chips are just going to be flying to that. So I thought I'm just going to scrape them off first before getting the sander. And I got smart. I'm like, why am I not scraping and sucking with the dust collector at the same time? Now, usually I don't even worry about cleaning the windows until the end after I have sanded them and repainted them, but this was just way too much. I thought I'm going to just go ahead and scrape off this layer. Looks like somebody had sprayed and didn't care that maybe they were putting some replacement windows in anywhere. I know Chris is always telling me that I don't need any more windows, but that was $1.99, guys. I know that it has a crack, but I think I can work with it. Now that I've got the biggest portion of the chippiness off, all I'm going to go through with the sander, I'm not trying to get rid of the patina, but I just don't want paint chipping all over. I'm not really sure. I have a mask on. If this is lead, it's dirty, it's got dirt. There's a difference between a patina and just plain dirty. A lot of times these windows have sat on the ground, they've sat in barns, storage, what have you. So when I'm reselling, I just like to get them as clean as they possibly can, but still keep that patina to them. So I took 2-inch Dollar General tape and I taped off around both sides on the outer edges just to protect that glass, helping me to have a little bit easier at the cleanup. And I do need to reglaze some of these windows. The other nice thing about sanding is that when you're sanding, if you have any of that glazing, any of the caulking that keeps the window in, if that is loose, that's going to vibrate out. So that's another reason I like to sand them with the orbital sander or some kind of a power sander, so it really vibrates them. So I've got this window glazing here, and that one for $1.99 needed the whole window needed to be reglazed, but you can pick up glazing at Menards, probably your local home stores. So no worry. I like the one for the caulk gun because it is angled, so I can go ahead and caulk it. It gets into that corners, and then I'll use my finger to smooth it out. And then I'll look through any of the other windows to see if there's any pieces and parts. I want both sides looking just as good as the front part. So the back to look good, the front to look good. Now that I've got them sanded, I've got anything reglazed, it's sat up. Now I can go ahead and clean off the windows just with some Superclean and some hot water. I don't know what was on these windows, and I definitely need to get this a good clean prepped surface. So I'm going to be painting both sides of the windows 2 coats, and I'm just going to be using the Kills paint and primer. I just want to make this look nice and clean. I don't want to make it, I'm not trying to take a smooth finish. I'm not trying to really, I just want to cover up what was there, give it that, still that aged old window look. I definitely don't want to take away that patina, but I wanted to make sure that glass is in there, and I want to make sure that these are clean for somebody to hang on their wall. Now it's funny, when I started to paint this one, I probably thought, oh, I probably should have shellacked this first. This was just raw wood, and I think this was the outside, inside. I'm not really sure, but I could already feel that it was just grabbing onto my brush, that it was just going to start yellowing my white paint. Surprise, surprise. Yep, look at that. It was just a little bit of a hot mess. But if you're going to flip, you're going to get into flipping, get yourself a couple cans if you can, if they sell them in your area, of shellac. Always have this on hand. We usually try to have 1 or 2, if not 4 cans of this shellac on hand, because it usually, you spray 1 coat, let it dry, spray another coat, and you're usually good to paint again. So now that I've got the 2 coats on the one side, I'm going to flip these bad boys over and get the 2 coats on the other side. That way the side that you see is nice and clean, and the side that's against somebody's wall is also nice and clean. Now after that's dry, I'm going to go back in with an orbital sander, and I'm just going to coat it down. I'm going to let it take it back down, give it let some of that patina show through. I left it kind of bumpy. I didn't take it smooth. I'm going to hit all the edges to show some of that wood through there, and maybe some of the original color, so that way it still has that patina, but now it's a clean patina. Then after I take the air compressor and get any of the dust blown off, I'm going to go in with just some of this Varathane finishing wax, and what that's going to do is make sure that it's all dust free. It's going to seal in any of that paint and just give it a nice smooth finish. After I get them all waxed, I usually try to wax before I move the tape off, but sometimes my brain doesn't work that way, but so far so good. So sometimes the wax isn't as easy to clean off the windows after it's set up, so that's why I leave the tape on. And also putting that tape on before doing the glazing definitely help keep that glazing so I have a nice clean line. And now I'm going to go back in. I'm going to make my lines because you can see through the window, and usually when you get these types of windows, the glazing is all wonky. It's not a straight line. So I really work really hard trying to make it pleasing on both sides, because it's a window, you can see all the way through it. So now I'm going to take my time, make sure that I got that clean glazing line, any previous paint that the previous owner had left behind, just trying to get them as straight as I can. So when I first thrifted this window for $1.99, I really thought, oh great, fine, I can break that glass out, we can put pallet wood in it. But then after going to Birds Gotta Fly Vintage and picking up all those transfers, I'm like, I have a different plan for this window now. Now I have it reglazed, so I know that that part is good and secure, but now I need to work on this crack a little bit. So that Starbond glue actually has when you get the 3 set with the spray, it has this thin glue in it. As you see, it is really runny, but I know that it will run down inside of it. So what I'm going to do is just put a couple coats of it on, let it fall into that crack, and then use the dryer to dry it that 15 seconds, put a little bit more on, making sure, because I know I can scrape the excess glue off the window. I'm not worried about that. I just want that crack to make sure that it's good and secure, and then there's no sharp points that anybody can cut themselves on. So now I have 4 nice, clean, new, old windows. So they are all ready now that they semi look clean, but I still need to get that glass cleaned on them. But look at that patina. They're just clean, new patinaed windows. So now I'm going to take my Norwex cleaning cloths and get these cleaned. So that if you are not familiar with Norwex, it is just a no soap. I think there's aluminum in them, but I absolutely love these for any kind of glass cleaning. So just water on the Enviro cloth and then the dry glass cloth to wipe it off, and then I can double check as I'm cleaning if there's any paint splatters that need to come off, and then I'll have to flip it over and do the other side and trying to get these as clean as I possibly can before putting the transfers on. Now on this window I had those built-in carved in handles. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ignore them and I'm going to put those on the back. Yep, I could have filled them in, but that's why I make sure that both sides of the windows look just wonderful. So when I go to do the decorations on it, I can choose a side. So I'm flipping this over and using the other side. So when I bought the transfers from Birds Gotta Supply Vintage, I can share that video and link down below. And they do have a website that you can order off of also. Anyway, and so when I picked them up, I know they were sized. And when I picked out the windows, I still didn't look at the size of what each of the transfers was. So note to self, if you're doing these, look at your size of your transfers, look at your size of your windows options. So I cleaned 4 windows and painted 4 windows without really looking at what my transfer is going to be. So I kind of had to struggle through figuring out what transfers I could put on these windows. So I finally chose this pattern, even though I'm not going to use these pieces. I don't think that does the best because it's not filling up this whole area. I'm going to choose the other 2 pieces, which is good, as I'm glad that I'm not using the whole package, because I'm trying to, this does not make, my windows I don't give my windows away anyway, because windows are hard to find and I take a lot of care in the windows. So I can't say necessarily that I sell our windows cheaply by any means. So putting these transfers are really going to hike the resale price up, but they're going to absolutely be beautiful at the end. So I did choose these 2 pieces, even though I know that it's not going to fill up the entire window. I think it's a statement in itself. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut off any of that excess. As you see, this flower was the breaking point. So those 2 pieces are going to butt up against each other. So I need to cut off this excess. I'm going to try to center these as best as I can. I'm going to they are flat at the bottom, so it needs to rest against the bottom. To me, my visual wants it to rest against the bottom. And so I measured out, putting pieces of masking tape where I knew that I was pretty much centered to the best of the ability. Now, be careful once you take that back covering off. It is sticky and these windows are nice and clean, so they grab right on it, just like when you're doing a stencil off of your Silhouette or your Cricut. Yeah, glass grabs right onto those. So I was like, okay, trying to get my visual, trying to be careful here, trying not to pull off any of the transfers, going, oh, oops, sure, shouldn't have done this quite yet. But this, I have done smaller transfers, not anything as big as these before. So right here is my first attempt on a big transfer like this. So I'm sharing my first time right with y'all. So yes, I quickly figured out that I should put the first piece down first, because they're going to need to overlap. So I need to get that top protective covering off. Now I did order one of these tools from the REDESIGNs to help put that transfer down. The the transfer itself comes with a little plastic piece. So I'm just this is a be patient, labor of love, really get some rubbing in. And as hard as I rubbed, I'm like, oh gosh, I hope I don't crack the window. I wasn't really sure how. It's funny how things stick or they don't stick or they do stick, or your little pieces and parts. So yep, don't think that this is going to be a fast project just because you're not spending the time evening out stamps, doing a stamp, or cutting out on your Cricut or your silhouette. Yep, they're all time consuming. It doesn't matter which one you're doing. I can't say that one's faster than the others by any means. So once you initially get that first started, get that first transfer down, can start pulling off that protective top covering. It really does go a lot easier. That way you can kind of pull it up and see what needs to be rubbed down a little bit more. So it's not like where you're doing a stencil where you can start rubbing and just start pulling it up. You definitely don't want to go quickly. You don't want to tear your transfer. You just want to gingerly making sure that all the pieces and parts, because there's always like those little bitty parts once in a while that just didn't get rubbed on enough to stay down. So yep, just be patient. Now I can go ahead and start laying down my second piece. I'm just going to be matching up that flower as best as I can. So now I'm just going to start rubbing the transfer on this side. So just gingerly pulling up the protective top layer while I'm rubbing on it, making sure that all the little bitty pieces are attached as much as the big pieces, but not pulling up quickly because they're all attached to each other. So don't just think because that's all attached and you pulled up, all those little pieces and parts are attached to each other somehow. Maybe not the butterfly, but these flowers sure were. So luckily I did clean and repaint one large window that this transfer, I actually bought 3 that were similar to this, but I guess in the ones I remember for Birds Gotta Fly Vintage, I didn't think the windows were that big, but maybe they had cut them down. So now I know which size of window that this will fit on. I do have quite a bit of hoard of windows, but I do love them. So now I have to decide which of the pieces and parts, it's still a little bit big for this window. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the swirly part, but I think I might hold on to that swirly part. That might come in handy. It definitely looks like a piece of a part that I could use on another later project. So I did end up having to cut off some of the bottom part also, which I didn't want to have to do, but I don't think I have any taller windows than this, but it'll be all right. So it almost takes up the whole side. So I think I have just maybe an inch. So I'm just going to measure, making sure, yeah, that's about what I have on the size. And I was going to put tape, and then I'm like, yeah, tape's just going to get, my tape is bigger than it should be. So I'm just going to have to eyeball her. I'm just going to have to put this transfer down very gingerly, keeping the other paper underneath as I'm trying to center it, trying to remember where my inch is on each side. And then just sometimes, okay, I'm just going to have to go for it and pull the entire sheet off. I think it's going to stay, it's a pretty strong piece of top coat that they put on there. I'm not going to transfer, let's call it transfer tape, that I don't think it's going to shift on me too awful much, that I can just get it all just hand rubbed down for right now. Even though I cut off the excess after I got it rubbed on just with my hands, there's a little bit of excess I'm going to just take my X-Acto knife and ruler and cut off. Okay, well, this is a beast of a window to get all this transferred on, so let's see how this goes.
I will not torture you guys with you having to watch me for the whole, I don't know. I think it took maybe 20-25 minutes, but I will say that Chris came in and he started helping me because, yeah, it is a lot on your, like, the inside of your hand. You do kind of have to take, but once you got started, you just had to keep going, and it did work. It was very helpful for Chris to come in and help me with it. Now for the smaller window with the crack. I knew that I had purchased these colored transfers, the sunflowers. Oh, I love sunflowers. So I was hoping that I was going to be able to cover up that crack with one of these sunflower transfers. So I'm not really sure how many I will use or if I will use all of them, but I do need to cut out each individual flower, each individual leaf, and then the stems. Now that I got them all cut out, now I have to kind of play around with them in my head, visualize. I always say the hardest part about a project, a craft, a DIY is coming up with the idea. Do y'all think that? I definitely think that a lot, that is the hardest. The vision and seeing what a project can become is what is the hardest to. So I know that my main focus, unfortunately, when I started playing with these sunflowers, was that crack, and then I quickly realized, hey, forget about the crack and work from the middle and then work out. So yep, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just starting right off with that first stem, that first visual. I'm treating it like I do when I do my floral arrangement. So I'm starting off with that height right in the middle. Just for the type of window that I'm doing, every project is different, and I didn't like it onto the side because cost efficient. I can't put anything behind this, like, even though I'm using drop cloth as the backdrop so it doesn't scratch out my countertop, which it shouldn't, but just in case, I like my countertops, they're not that old. So yeah, so I'm just going to treat it just like I do my flower arranging. I'm using that stem as my focal point and taking some of the others that do have a little bit of stem, like it's all coming off together. You just have to do what's pleasing to your eye. I'm just going for the height thing, but I don't know. I kind of found, I don't know if it's because it's the individual, the little, or the color transfers I was having a little bit easier time, or it was my third transfer that I was doing right in a row and that my muscles just became numb from rubbing on it, and it seemed like they were easier to transfer over. So I hope that these are, oh my gosh, I hope that they are videoing and appealing to you. Like, I can't even tell you how beautiful these sunflowers are in person. So I hope that they are coming that way on your TV screen. As I'm working down with the flowers, they have lots of these little leaves. So I'm connecting the flowers to the stem. Just not that they're all coming off the same stem, but they do, though. Sunflowers do that. And just so that there's not any of that dead air space, that they're all kind of flowing together. So I'm just filling in a little bit with some of these leaves as I work around it. So now I'm going to start filling in my bottom, working my way over to that crack. But this one, the way that it was tipped, it didn't look good coming off the stem. It was its own little individual stem. So I'm like, yep, he's getting a corner spot. And then I just kept filling in with the sunflower heads. Yep, you see I did cover that crack, and I think it looks, yep, I needed to refocus, stop focusing on that crack when I began, and just focus on the whole entire picture first. But I do absolutely love how these are popping. And now I'll go back in and I'll connect any of the flower heads that are just hanging out there with some of this greenery. But I absolutely love, I didn't know if I was going to use all the flower heads, but I actually ended up doing that. So I have to figure out how many pages are in here. I think there's 8 in this set. and how much it cost, divide that down, what my window cost was, what my time. Yeah, we'll figure out the cost at the end, guys. Now this split window wasn't very big also. This is one of those great big roll transfers, but I did realize that I could go ahead and cut it in half. I think I can get 2 images out of that, which is good as a reseller, because when I'm putting that whole image, what is that? It's like $30 for this whole transfer. So if you're 100% markup, then that you got $60, and you have to add your window and your paint and your time. So I like that I was able to half this one, is all I'm going to say. Now this one's a little bit trickier because it has that slat of wood between the middle. I probably shouldn't have removed that whole backing quite yet. I don't know what I was thinking. I was in the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to level it out. But my windows were really clean and it did stick, and I did lose a couple little pieces and parts. But luckily, this is a very airy transfer, so by that time I was done, you didn't notice them. But I'm like, oh, note to self, don't do that. Keep that backing on there, guys. Learn from my mistakes. See how it grabbed, and I'm like, well, nothing I can do about that. I got to take it off. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut that bottom strip off that I don't need. And there again, some of the transfer did stick to my wood, but we will deal with that when that time comes, as we're trying to get this. Personally, I don't want my transfer to overlap on the wood. I want it to look like it's 2 separate pieces. So I'm using the ruler to butt it up against that wood so I have a nice tight fit. And then I can pull that top piece off and then put that up towards the top again. And yep, a little bit of it stuck. We're not going to deal with that right now. So see, as I'm trying to get this to be level, all of a sudden a big piece, I'm like, okay, well, there it is. I'm going to work my way back there, and hopefully this flower is centered. But the flower is very airy. That was a little bit of frustration. I guess if I can suggest anything, keep that bottom layer transfer there. And I will just work with what I have. But yep, I got to take the scraper. You can't grab it with your fingers. It is stuck, and it is what it is. So it's going to work out, guys. Trust me. I have to cut off that excess that I don't need against the wood also. You know my channel, you guys. I'm going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is real. This is real life. This is how things work out. If I made everything seem to be perfect all the time, would you want to watch me? Because it would be frustrating. You know, that was the thing about Martha Stewart. I was like, you can't be perfect all the time. Things have to go wrong sometimes. So now it's going to be rub-a-dub-dub, 3 men in a tub. So, you know, maybe it's the craziness, that a little bit of stress, but hey, you just work with it. Things happen. The craft sometimes tells you how the craft's going to turn out, and these are not cheap transfers at all. So I'm just going to work with it, and it will. I actually pulled the bottom part out of the trash of the one farmer market one, just in case I needed to see if I needed to try to fix that piece. But it actually, God wink moment, he's helping me out. I think it turned out just fine. So yep, just going to rub this one on just like the others. Now, when it comes to these older windows, these windows are heavy, the glass is heavy, the frame is heavy, so we like to make sure that we put a good hanging system, and these are just those eyelet hangers that I get off Amazon, a pack of 100, very reasonable. And then we use this wire that we get also from Amazon, but it's like a fencing wire, so it's going to be nice and strong. You're not going to have to worry about it breaking. Try to center them as best as you can, and put that wire on. That way when the person buys it, it's all ready to hang when they get home, and they're nice and secure hangers.
Oh my gosh. How did you guys feel about those transfers on those old windows? I know probably the beginning was kind of boring watching me fix and clean a window, but it had to be done. I don't want dirty windows on somebody's nice clean walls. I don't want to take the chance of something scraping or chipping paint. You know, that's your choice if you want to buy an old window, but as a reseller, I want to make sure that I kind of have the chippy paint off and I have it sealed in and that it's good to go. And we have a hanger system on there when you buy it, so you just take it home and you can hang it up. So, but I absolutely loved the transfers. The only thing I would suggest is when I bought the transfers, I knew I had a hoard of windows, but when I picked out 4 windows to do transfers on, I didn't really check the sizings. So I already had all those windows done, and that took some time. So yeah, maybe next time I do them, I'm gonna double check my sizes on my transfers, look at the windows I have, and then go from there. So that was one step that I probably missed, but hey, I am human. It worked out. We made it work. I think I kept them down, cost efficient, that hopefully they will sell, and I'll try to remember to share that with you all when they sell. It's so hard to remember and how to fit that into a video. Thanks for watching today's projects, you guys, and I hope I have inspired you to look at old windows and maybe check out some transfers. There's a lot out there. I'll link Birds Gotta Fly Vintage down below. You can buy transfers off their site. Hey, they support me, I'll support you. And if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you were checking out this content for the first time and you liked what you saw, hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when we've uploaded a new video, and we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.